What's up, everybody? It's your favorite narrator and voice actor from Ohio, Brian Von VA here, back at it again with another set of D&D stories. This time, we've got a doozy again. What was your most brutal D&D kill? Part 2. This was in a supervillain homebrew one-shot that I and a few friends did back in high school, probably around 2008-ish. I was playing a character that could freely manipulate his osteoblasts and osteoclasts to alter his bone structures. Think Kimimaro from Naruto. We were fighting a group of Marvel heroes, Spider-Man, Wolverine, those sort of heroes. One of my allies managed to stun or otherwise incapacitate Spider-Man within my movement range, so I walked up, placed my palm flat on his head, wrapped my fingers around his head, and in one glorious natural 20 coup de grace roll, extended a 6-inch bone spike from my palm through Spider-Man's skull and into his brain, instantly killing him. It was horribly violent, but glorious at the time. I was playing a blood hunter, so I decided to make my character purposely as edgy as possible. This involved a metal claw arm which was treated as a longsword for the sake of my dual-wielding fighting style. Throughout the campaign, we had been having run-ins with a rather annoying sub-villain who managed to barely escape every time. In our final confrontation with him, I used my first 2 attacks to carve a large X into his torso with a flaming longsword, which I then followed up by plunging my claw arm directly into the center of the X. I then lifted his entire body off the ground as our barbarian ran over and caved his skull in. Yeah, I got a pretty good one from a recent session. Basically, we were fighting a high-ranking general in the big bad evil guy's army. A Goliath with a greatsword he was using with one hand. Ooh. It wasn't going well for us because of bad luck for the players and way too good luck for our DM, to the point where we thought he was cheating. He wasn't. Eventually, the party's paladin gets in close. And nat 1. The Goliath proceeds to attack and, of course, rolls high and getting really high damage. So there's no form of resurrection in this setting, and the DM has a love of gruesome deaths. He described the paladin's death. As the paladin makes one last attack, the Goliath cuts off the paladin's forearm. The paladin goes in for a punch, and the Goliath catches his fist and stabs right through the chest. He then pulls out the sword and bisects the paladin right at the belly button. As the Goliath raises the paladin's upper half, his intestines fall out onto the ground, and the Goliath tosses the paladin at the ranger. The imagery from that moment was equal parts awesome and terrifying. TLDR, paladin lost his arm, was cut in half, and got thrown at the ranger. Gory. For character flavor and background stuff, my dwarf paladin, whenever he drops below half HP, he would go whole ham tossing aside his shield and dual wielding his custom warhammer/battle axe. During one session, I was extremely lucky and crit hit during the end of our campaign and rolled low on the physical damage, but the smite damage was maxed, so it hit the big bad evil guy. It did nothing, but after I blew a hole through its chest the size of a basketball on the second hit, I pumped in another smite and Gallaghered the big bad evil guy while he knelt before me. It was a fitting end. I was running a converted Changing the Dreaming Redcap in D&D. Basically just a magical bite and the ability to eat anything eventually. Immune to ill effects of anything he ate, etc. Well, the DM went for the idea. Well, Redcap is arguing with an ogre, bites ogre's finger off, and used the sharp end of the finger bone as a shiv. As a rogue, while the ogre was distracted, he stabbed the ogre in the back of the knees, then in the taint. Ooh. Then, when the ogre hit the ground, the Redcap turned on his back, latched onto his shoulder, and hung on like a bulldog, all the while repeatedly stabbing the ogre in the throat with his own sharp/broken-ended finger bone. As the ogre was lying there bleeding out, the Redcap used the finger bone to dig out the ogre's eyeballs for a snack. Dipping his hat in the ogre's spilled ichor. Must uphold traditions after all. The rest of the party was utterly terrified, especially when the Redcap starts eating his own weight of ogre flesh, stopping only long enough to toss the loot to the side, at the party's insistence. What was left, he crammed into a bag of holding, and was like, "Well, there's some rations for me." my party and I finally finished a battle with a necromancer from Dracolich cult at level 5. So we were already too tired to see yet another village, but to our surprise, this village looked somewhat okay. We met a mysterious naked man riding a cloud telling us if we see a dragon to summon him. Many of us didn't like him at first, and our paladin used detect good and evil to see his alignment. Chaotic good. So we didn't want to mess with him. So we managed to get away, but the paladin also said something strange. Weird. It seems when I look into the water, I see nothing but evil. But looking at the village, I see a majority of good and neutral. So head into the village. As we walk in, the villagers all start to greet us, showing us around and even allowing entry into their church, who they had a statue of a beautiful woman. Who is this, I may ask? Said Sasuke, my character who is a changeling rogue. This is our goddess Amore. She grants us safety with her holy water and bears fruit for us to eat. She is the symbol of this village, said the priest. Now, I love to screw with religion, don't hate me, so I made an ingenious plan to probably gain some money in the village. So I sneaked away from the party and walked into the water. I let the image of the statue into my head, dive into the water, and transformed into their goddess. As I walk back to the surface, the villagers start to notice me surrounding me and chanting, Amore, Amore, Amore. I didn't let it get to my head. Well, maybe a little. As I talked to them, trying to convince them to fight against the demon in the water that has stolen my power. So, with the roll of an 18, I was to convince the whole village that I was their goddess and the demon corrupted the water. After my plan succeeded, my party was asked to help defeat the demon as I returned to my Sasuke form. They were not happy, but with the promise of special items for their services, they reluctantly agreed. So we got ready to fight the demon, as the water bubbled up to show an angry yet beautiful woman saying that the party needed to leave the village, for we didn't believe her way. So as I slowly transform into her, I say, You do not know the way, as I tell everyone to attack. With the help of the villagers and the party, we were able to defeat the demon, but with Amore dead, the magic in the lake and the village dissipated, and everything sunk except for half of the houses. So as their goddess and I, my party champions, stayed to help the villagers rebuild, teaching agriculture and helping with hunting. It was awesome. But an added bonus, I accidentally became a god or, well, goddess to them. So now I got wild magic that at a certain roll allows me to do water attacks. So yeah, killed a goddess, helped rebuild a village, and even have new powers. But the only drawback is that Amore is in my mindscape now. One of my players suplexed a T-Rex that was genetically crossed with a bumblebee, known as a B-Rex, and I'm smiling already. To do it, he polymorphed into a giant bobbit worm, grabbed it in his jaws as it was trying to fly away to flee the party. He crit rolled so well he ended up not only breaking the B-Rex's neck, but decapitating it as well, while the party just sat on the side and ate popcorn. The enemy wasn't the victim of my party's most brutal kill. It was the DM. So the DM ran us like the most OP magic equipment stashed, buyable feats and stats, in-game currency instead of XP, and so on. So we were more than OP. We were working to take down an evil paladin and his generals. At this point, we had taken down his barbarian and bard generals, and was scouting out the next camp. Now this camp was huge, loads of enemies throughout. The boss was a druid, with loads of homebrew features, items, and spells. The party consisted of me, an Aarakocra ranger horizon walker, a huge half-orc barbarian with some crazy axes that could absorb and switch between the effects of magical weapons, a human paladin with a great hammer that did a whole bunch of extra damage on the first hit of the day, and lastly, a bard, and a druid who didn't get a chance to do anything. Now, something we noticed about the dungeon was, number one, there was no roof, and number two, that the general was doing a ritual quite close to a wall. So I, the Aarakocra, with my plus 11 something to ranged attacks, flew 20 to 30 feet up into the air onto the outside of the wall, with the party right beneath me, and threw a swap star, placing myself into the camp, before promptly flying straight out, and the general falling to my party. With the surprise round and him rolling low initiative, he was dead before even getting a turn. My most brutal kill wasn't truly mine alone. For a little background, me and my party were on Chult, screwing around looking for the Temple of Ultimate Bad Times. We saw an airship crash and went off to help. At the time, we were a tight 4-man/woman crew. Me and the very cautious druid, the fishy warlock whose name I can't recall, a monk something, and finally the unfortunate target, the hybrid who we'll call the Rat Man, because that's what his name was and he made sure we remembered. So if you know anything about Chult, you know it's swarming with undead. We did not know this. We got to the crash site and immediately got chased up a tree by a swarm of ghouls, trapping us with the rattled surviving crew of the crashed airship. After helping out the crew as best we can and resting, we started to plan how to deal with the undead still under us. After a little while, we heard noises. Then we were ambushed by massive, monstrous undead ape beasts. We weren't doing so hot. I got pummeled through 2 wild shapes and knocked down to single-digit hit points before dealing with my 1. Same was true for most of my group except the monk, who was hanging near the back of the group, hiding behind the crew strangely. Our buddy Rat Man was up front handling one quite well, up until he was flanked by a second one who grappled him. Now things started going very badly for him. The undead ape, in all its wisdom, looked at the struggling hybrid and chomped down hard on him with a crit, biting him near in half with an attack that almost dealt enough to kill him instantly. I, in a last-ditch attempt to kill the ape and save him, blasted the both of them with a moonbeam. This was not the right choice. The ape took a couple shaky steps over to the side of the boat and threw Ratman overboard, tossing him from the treetops all the way down to the forest floor, where now the ghouls started to feast upon him. At this point, he was very, very dead. But it wasn't over. Moving my moonbeam down, I blasted Ratman's body with holy energy, frying both it and the horrific imitations of life devouring it. In the end, I didn't technically kill him, but I definitely had a hand in what is by far one of the most brutal kills of the campaign. Hey everyone, Brian Von VA here, back at the end to check up on y'all. If you liked the video, then leave a like. If you're new here, then consider subscribing, and everyone ring that bell to be notified when we upload. If you'd like to submit a story to us, then be sure to check out our subreddit r/MrRipper. Or if you're looking for a D&D group, itching to watch us live, or you just want to follow Mr. Ripper further, check the links in the description for our group Discord, live Twitch link, and Twitter for Big Rig Rips himself. Using a help action, you can also come sub to me on my journey to 1K, Brian Von VA, joining the Brivers Army as we dive into gaming streams and voice acting memes and videos. Always trying to end on a positive, I just want to say everyone who's listening thus far that you matter. No matter what anyone else has ever said to you, you matter. Your feelings, your thoughts, it all matters. And don't you let anyone take that away from you. Say hi to someone new in the comments tonight or today, be nice to yourself, and cherish those you love. We will see you next time. Bye for now.